Well, among internuts, probably one of the biggest nuts right now is Ben Shapiro. And even among the right wing, he's kind of losing a lot of credibility and support. And here I just want to focus on the issue of Dune and its relation to Star Wars and note some very interesting contradictions as well as consistencies in its position. So there's a very good video essay by Kavernacle going over Ben Shapiro's questionable movie opinions. But I want to push back a little bit where the Kavernacle goes and saying, like, Ben Shapiro doesn't really understand Dune. I don't think that's entirely true. I do think he can actually save his position if he puts it in a certain manner. So let's hear Kavernacle and the Ben Shapiro response.
You would guess that a supposed intellectual like Ben Shapiro would pick up on these films. But amazingly, the only thing he seems to take from Dune is Soviet Union bad. So I'll just play you a little clip of him praising it while talking about the Soviet Union.
This may be the best looking science fiction movie ever. And this movie is just spectacular looking. Like from beginning to end, every shot is a piece of art. The color scheme is wonderful. Every shot is beautifully constructed. The special effects are great. You see every dollar on the screen. The acting is excellent across the board. It's a very dark movie. Just visually it's dark, but it is also, the story is very dark. On the other side, you have House Harkonnen, which is kind of a stand-in for the Soviets, kind of. The idea here is that House Harkonnen is going to attack. The Empire is going to quietly support House Harkonnen, and the Atreides are going to go down. I think the movie is actually great. I think it's going to be hard to...
Well, I agree overall that Dune probably is focused more on, quote, Middle Eastern, Native American, and even Asian peoples. However, that doesn't exclude the Jews necessarily. In fact, the Quetzalcoatl Haderach is actually based on the Hebrew, called Shortening the Way. So it's true that the main focus of Herbert is this allegory of people in the Middle East being oppressed by imperialist powers. However, the Jews are a Middle Eastern people, so I can kind of see where Ben is coming from. So he's not being a complete lunatic or moron. You can kind of see from his very Jewish nationalist perspective where he's coming from that. Well, couldn't these Fremen guerrillas be stand-in for the Jews? Because the Jews were enslaved. The Jews for a time were the underdog. In its early history, technically, Israel was, yes, fighting for its independence against these much stronger, larger groups. I think that history has been distorted woefully, but we'll put that aside. So I do think, from a certain angle, he's actually not the crazy, stupid man we think he is. I think the problem is, even though there is a certain consistency with Dune, like whereas with, say, Batman or other things, The Last Jedi, he's being a complete moron. But at least with Dune, it's like, no, there is a Jewish aspect to Dune that is there, that is legitimate. It's wrong to distort it how big it is, but it is definitely there. But then we jump to Star Wars, and of course, Ben shows his hand, and of course, really his real agenda is this kind of anti-feminist, anti-gay, anti-left, anti-communist agenda, and Star Wars is going to help him out somehow.
Attempt to buy all of that back, and understanding that this trilogy never should have happened, and understanding all the flaws of Force Awakens and Last Jedi, now you understand why I liked Rise of Skywalker, because they attempt to correct as many of these problems as they can while apologizing for the series ever existing, which is basically what this was. The stuff that's really good, okay, the stuff that's really good is actually quite good. And then the biggest retcon of all, the one that actually matters, and that answers why Rey is cool, right? It answers the biggest question, why is Rey even a thing? And the answer is because she's Palpatine's granddaughter, which is fantastic. Okay, that's a great reveal. That's great because the most underrated Force ability person in the Star Wars series, because everyone's focused, nobody's focused on the fact that Palpatine's an unbelievable badass with the Force, right? Palpatine is so strong in the Force that he basically defeats Yoda. He is able to conceal his identity as the Emperor, right? If you're pissed at this series because you feel like it ruined your childhood, then this movie was an attempt to restore that.
I honestly just can't.
So yes, after the Rise of Skywalker, good or bad, apparently Rey's power comes from Palpatine. We're going to bypass how that makes any sense at all. I've tried to figure this out. I'm still very confused if she's technically a clone, is she a hybrid? It's a lot of different theories and speculation. But the basic gist is yes, her power comes from a bloodline related to Palpatine, and of course you can see Ben is loving this. So it turns out the white man, for all his evil, is giving power to the feminist woman. Well, that just shows the woke stupidity and their hypocrisy. Well, I would agree. The Rise of Skywalker is beyond confused. It has a lot of racist, idiotic, pro-fascist moments, and then these very weird left-wing, pro-gay moments. It's just utterly incoherent in its political message. It's all over the place. So I agree. quote, the left that supports the rise of Skywalker shows that they have no real consistency or any principles. The problem is Ben Shapiro's no different, because whether you look at Donald Trump, Kanye West, or probably Dune Part 2, we're going to see he's going to switch sides based on the pro-Jewish, anti-Jewish stance. So when Donald Trump was very against the Muslims and attacking all these immigrants, he hated blacks, he hated Hispanics, Ben Shapiro was like putting on the MAGA hat, saying, I love Trump, guys. He's a hell of a guy. But then he started to openly express his anti-Semitism, which had always been there, by the way. That's been documented quite a few times. Suddenly he decided, I don't like this Trump guy. He hates the Jews, guys. I no longer support Donald Trump. I no longer support him. No me gusta. And then Kanye, right, starts attacking the left and the woke and supports Donald Trump. And Ben Shapiro's like, I love Kanye. He's breaking the narrative. I like this guy. He stands up for himself. He's not going to be cowed by the media. But then Kanye went full Hitler and said, I love Hitler. I love what Hitler did with Germany. And then Ben Shapiro's like, Kanye, I thought I knew him. I no longer support Kanye. It turns out he's very anti-Jewish. He's very anti-Semitic. And you're like, wait a minute. Let's think about this. Technically speaking, Kanye's music has not been altered. So the quality of the music did not change. So your opinion changed, not based on the aesthetics, but based on the politics. Kanye's political opinion changed, and now you shifted. So the problem with The Last Jedi, apparently, it was too left-wing. But The Rise of Skywalker was very right-wing. So now it's good. So if Dune had a very anti-Jewish, anti-Semitic subtext, then you would think it's bad, even if the core story is good. Like, that's pretty crazy. You're judging everything from this pro-anti-Jewish angle. So Ayn Rand, she's very pro-Jewish. Oh, she's a great novelist. Now J.R.R. Tolkien, he's very pro-Jewish. He's a great novelist. You go through the list, but you think to yourself, wait a minute. So let's say this. Let's say if secretly we found new evidence that J.R.R. Tolkien was actually anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish, he would just turn around and say, I used to love Lord of the Rings, but now I realize, turns out Tolkien's a racist. He hates the Jewish people. I no longer support Tolkien. That hasn't changed the quality of the stories at all. Like, nothing changed in terms of the aesthetic quality. You've gone full Hitler. You're judging the aesthetics by politics, which is what fascists do. Now, is Benny Boy a fascist? I don't honestly know. It seems like he's all over the place. I would say with Dune, he has a certain consistency and a certain coherence. Because yes, Jewish myths and Jewish history are being tapped into seriously by Frank Herbert. But then he's stretching it to all these other places, and you're like, that does not make any sense. You're just being a hypocrite, creating all these double standards to suit your narrative, and you're just going to change your mind when the politics shift. So, whatever you say about Ben Shapiro, you can't really take him seriously as a cultural or movie critic. He just doesn't seem to have any credibility. He's just always going to read things according to his Jewish propaganda standards, which is like, okay, you can be a proud Jewish nationalist, even a right-wing nationalist, and maybe I don't like you politically, but aesthetically you might maintain some consistency. But apparently that's a little bit too much for old Ben Shapiro.